and thank you for clicking on this video. So I wanted to ask you, what is your identity? So what do you identify with? How do you define yourself? And I'm going to ask you to do a little exercise. The first thing that comes to mind, you probably have many ways you identify, or many things you identify with, many ways you define yourself. But go ahead and please hit the little pause button, and then go ahead and comment below and just put the first thing that came to mind. Okay. It's a little exercise here, so hit the pause button, unpause, and let's go. So, at least if you didn't comment below, at least, hopefully think about it. What was the first thing that came to mind? What is your identity? It could be tons of things. It could be a sports team, or school you went to, or your profession, or however you define yourself. What do you identify with? And what I'm going to ask you is, is it true? Okay. Now you might be thinking, well, of course it's true. That's what I identify with. Well, what I'm asking is, has it been tested? Is it something that may even be, I talked about emotions and stuff, maybe is a trigger if someone talks in a negative light about it, or about whatever you're identifying with, whatever you tie yourself with. And is it true? Has it been tested? Or is it something that you want to identify with? Or is it something that it is your identity? And because we all have a picture, of what we think we are, or who we think we are, or our identity. We think we have this picture, and we gear it more towards what we want to be than what we are. If that makes sense. And so that's why I was asking, has your identity been through the fire? Has it been tested? And is it true? Because I know myself, and through life and stuff like that, and I think many of us do this, we identify ourselves in a way that isn't true. Okay? And that causes pain, that causes issues. And I've talked about this before, if we feed the illusion, and whenever it gets tested and it doesn't stand because it's an illusion, then that causes pain. Okay? And it can literally crumble your world. And it really has to be really tested. And this is where I've kind of touched on too. You have to be really authentic and honest with yourself, and it's not easy. And what I mean by tested is, do you have integrity with your identity? Is it what you tell people, but you don't really act that way, or think that way, or feel that way inside? Is it what you like to tell yourself, but in truth in life, with different situations, different pressures, different things that come up, do you stick to that? Do you have integrity? Or do you make excuses for that time? Well, that time I didn't, or whatever, because, okay. If it's your true identity, and if you have integrity, if you're honest, that's why you have to follow truth. It's the foundation, it's the rock. Truth exists no matter what you believe, okay? Illusions only exist if somebody believes them, okay? And they're empty. They always come crumbling down because they're not substance. They're not real. They're empty. So I want to bring this up because, um, I mean, you could go through your whole life having an illusion of yourself inside, and when you're feeding an illusion and not facing truth, there's no way for you to overcome what you need to overcome. And not only that, but usually, if it you know, you're going to keep on getting faced with issues, it's going to cause pain. Is kind of what I'm getting to, because, and I mentioned this before, if this is a lesson you're supposed to learn, if God knows you need to overcome something, you're going to keep on facing it. But if you're saying, oh, no, I'm this, I'm that, you're feeding that delusion, it's just going to be painful. Okay? You're not going to be at peace. You're not going to be at peace because there's conflict. Like peace comes by being true. Peace comes by being love. Okay? Because with love comes forgiveness. Forgiveness for yourself, forgiveness for others. And when it's true, it's a rock that can't be shaken no matter what people say or think. But, and that kind of goes to, like, are you easily offended video I had. But I want to bring this up because it's very, very, very important. And there's also, so you really have to face truth within yourself, just truth in general. And to help you with that, you have to involve God. You have to have a relationship with God. And you have to read His Word, because truth cuts like a sword. It isn't always feely good, okay? It isn't always what's easy. But that's how we grow and overcome. So you have to do it, because once you do overcome it, you get stronger because you know more truth and you have more experience, and that's where wisdom comes in. Be wise. Don't be a fool. Be wise, okay? Now, there's kind of another part to this. So going back to what I started by asking you, what was the first thing that kind of came to mind? You probably have many things you identify with or many ways you define yourself, but what was the first thing that came to mind? And what I'm going to ask you is it, of the world or not? And what I mean by that is do what did you identify with your career title, or did you identify with your wealth status, or with your possessions, or did you identify with stuff outside yourself that are of the world? Or did you identify yourself with something like your relationships with people, your relationships with God, your the way you feel and the way you think? Because really, and I've said this many times, we're not our physical body. We're not the things outside of ourselves. We're not the man-made titles, the man-made accolades, awards. We're not labels. We're not all that stuff. If you identify with that, please, please, please involve God, because when you identify with that stuff, it's a life of pain, because they're illusions. They don't give you anything, okay? And when those moments come up of truth about that, it's painful. You set yourself up for pain. You're not on the foundation, the rock of truth that you can build on, that never shakes, okay? Storms come, and you weather the storms, okay? But because going back to, because we are, what's eternal is what we are, and it's not our physical body. This is temporary. You are your emotions, your thoughts, what people call your morals, your ethics, the way you interact people, the way you treat others, and yourself, including yourself. Don't forget about yourself. It's important. But that's what's real. and I've kind of mentioned this before too in another video when I talked about like when I look back at like my jobs and careers so far and all that stuff, it's not the goals I achieved as far as like, making money and all that stuff. It was the relationships with people, and really the man-made titles and job positions and goals and activities or whatever was required. Those accomplishments, that doesn't matter. That doesn't stick. What sticks is how you affected people and how they affect you and your interactions with people. So it doesn't matter what you do. That's what's important, because that's really how you define yourself. Okay? And what I mean by that is, of course, I can't tell you how you define yourself. What I mean by that, though, is that's who we really are. We are what we don't see. We're not what we see in this physical reality. What's eternal is above all this physical earth stuff. And this earth and the physical is temporary. It's death. Because life isn't temporary. Okay? Life is eternal. Life is God. So that's why you have to involve God and just be honest. We like to put bars and roadblocks on ourselves because of our mindset. That's why you need to repent. You need to change your mindset. Not feel bad about yourself, but just be real and be like, I need to change. God, I need you to help me, because He is the source. We're just children here. But getting back to what is your identity? I hope that you commented below to share. That'd be great. But the main thing is, whatever first came to mind. Do you identify with things outside of yourself and things of the world, or did you first identify with something that really about you? How you interact with people, how you treat people, all that stuff. Do you have integrity? Because first of all, it doesn't matter what you identify with. If you have no integrity, if you're not standing for something, you're going to fall for everything. You're empty. Okay, so I know this may hurt some people and make people mad, but the truth is, if you have no integrity, you don't have an identity. Okay? This is not to make anyone feel bad, though. This is not my intention. My intention is just to make you aware. Because, you could go through life without thinking. And this is you need to know who you are. And then when you know who you are, you need to stand on that. Or you're not who you think you are. Okay? So this is very, very important. So please, I hope that you put down, shared, what you identify with at the beginning of this video. But go ahead and please share comments, thoughts, questions, all that stuff down below in the comments. And if you like the video, thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Ring-a-ding-a-ling that bell for notifications to let you know when I upload videos. And stay strong, and God bless.